Chapter 8, the ram from the east and the egoat from the west. I encourage you to read Daniel chapter 8, verse 1 to 8 and 15 to 24. This is the historical application of Daniel 8, 1 to 7 and verse 20 and 21. In the third year of the reign of King Belshazzar, I saw Daniel in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. Then I lifted up my eyes, and saw, and behold, there stood before the river a ram, which had 2 horns. And the 2 horns were high, but one was higher than the other, and the higher came up last. I saw the ram pushing westward, northward, and southward, so that no beast might stand before him, neither were there any that could deliver out of his hand. But he did according to his will, and became great. And as I was considering, behold, an egoat came from the west, on the face of the whole earth, and touched not the ground. And the goat had a notable horn between his eyes. And he came to the ram that had 2 horns, which I had seen standing before the river, and ran unto him in the fury of his power. And I saw him come close unto the ram, and he was moved with choler against him, and smote the ram, and brake his 2 horns. And there was none that could deliver the ram out of his hand. Now, the explanation is given in the book of Daniel chapter 8 of who is the ram and who is the rough goat. And it says, the ram which you saw having 2 horns of the king of Media and Persia, and the rough goat is the king of Gracia. And the great horn that is between his eye is the first king. As we see the vision, there are many points that are very important to remember, as they will be used in the next explanation, and that's the word Elam. The word Elam is very, very important, and also the river of Ulai. We also notice that the ram pushed towards the west, the north, and the south, implying that he came from the east. The egoat itself came from the west to attack actually the ram, so therefore they met from the west and the east, and that's how they came together. Now we know as well that the 2 horns, the ram and the 2 horns, is the king of Media Persia, and notice that one of the horn was higher than the other, and it says the one was higher than the other, and the higher came last. So you have Media Persia that is represented here by those 2 horns, because there were 2 different kings ruling at the same time. And of course the horn of the Gracia, which has to do with, again, Alexander the Great. And we know that basically this great horn that is between his eyes will be destroyed because he met a very early death. Very important details from Daniel chapter 8, verses 1 and 2, namely the province of Elam by the river of Ulai, must be taken into consideration. In the 3rd year of the reign of King Belshazzar, I saw in a vision, and it came to pass when I saw that I was at Shushan in the palace, which is in the province of Elam. And I saw in a vision, and I was by the river of Ulai. From the Spirit of Prophecy, written in 1896, this letter tells us that the light that Daniel received direct from God was given especially for these last days. The visions he saw by the banks of the Ulai, which is in chapter 8, and the Edekel, chapter 10 to 12, the great rivers of Shinar, are now in process of fulfillment, and all the events foretold will soon have come to pass. What we can assert here that is in process of fulfillment is definitely the 2300 days of Daniel 8. In Daniel 8, there are three visions, the first one being the ram and the goat, which have definitely an historical application and a present-day application. And the second one is the little horn, and it has to do with the daily, which that as well as been attempted in the past to be applied, but it has definitely a present-day application. And now we are talking the third vision of Daniel 8, which has to do with the 2300 days, which are in process of fulfillment till the judgment of the living is coming with the Sunday law in the United States, which is the test for the living. Now, chapter 10, 11, and 12, many people have attempted to give an explanation of those. Even in the past, the pioneer, the Millerite, attempted to do so. But when you read carefully those chapters, you can see definitely that they point to the last days. Especially chapter 12, where Christ, in early writing, we're told, did not stand up yet, the plagues have not fallen, and the dead in Christ have not risen yet. So these prophecies, especially Daniel 11 and 12, which are presented in chapter 10, are still for future application. A present-day application of Daniel 8, verse 1 to 7, and explained in verse 20 and 21, which has to do with the ram and the goat. This application is based on Jeremiah 49, verse 36 to 39. And I read for you verse 36. And upon Elam will I bring the four winds from the four quarters of heaven, and will scatter them toward all those winds. And there shall be no nation whither the outcasts of Elam shall not come. Elam is the detail which is mentioned in Daniel 8, which I was mentioning to pay attention, because Daniel was in the province of Elam when he had his vision. And now the four winds, which we know are strife, war, conflicts, it involves Elam. And Elam, through these conflicts, will be scattered all over the world, which means that no nation will be missing any of these Elam people. Every nation around the world will have the Elam people, whether they want to or not. Now, the ram that comes from the east, as presented in Daniel 8:4, is identified in Daniel 8:20, 21 as Medo-Persia. And these people, when you do a bit of a research, you will find out they're the direct descendants from Shem, the son of Noah. Shem, Ham, and Japheth were the three sons of Noah, and Medo-Persia are descendants from Shem. Shem having had 5 sons, and his oldest son was Elam, and so Elam and Medo-Persia are totally together in this one, and it's confirmed by Genesis 10:22. Ishmael, which is a direct descendant from Abraham, and Abraham is from Shem, and Shem's son, one of the 5 sons, is Arphaxad. If you want to see that, the generation is very well explained actually in the book of Genesis, in the genealogy of Abraham, and this is where you get that important information as well. It's in chapter 11, and there it says very clearly in verse 10 that Abraham is from Arphaxad. Therefore, all of these people, one way or the other, they have to come from the line of Noah, either Shem, Ham, or Japheth. And Ishmael was a mixed blood, as we could say, because Abraham was basically a direct, he was the father of the Hebrew nation to come. But Ishmael, his mother Hagar, was Egyptian. She was the servant of Sarah. And you can find out in the Bible that he was a man of bow, just like the descendant of Elam, which means they were Arab people. They were people that were nomad. They were not sedentary, meaning they do not stay in one place all the time. They were travelers. And Ishmael, which was the same, and we know he married Egyptian woman. And we have also another detail in the book of Galatians that tells us an allegory that Hagar was the woman of bondage, and this is representative of Arabia, while Sarah was a woman of freedom, which is representative of Jerusalem, Jerusalem being Israel. So here we have Ishmael, Shem, Elam, and then we have Abraham, which comes from Shem as well, and Arphaxad. So this is the genealogy of these people. Lately we have been doing a lot of synchronism and chronology. This is called genealogy, and it's the same type of an idea where you bring events and people and time together. Today the nations from the Middle East would be the representative of Elam, mainly the Arab, and they practice the religion of Islam, and they are called Muslims. Muslims is not a religion. They are the people who practice the religion of Islam, and they are reason to believe that the religion of Islam was set up by the papal Rome in 600 AD through Mohammed. And we have actually a whole history that we could study on this. Do your research. It's very important at this time to know who we are dealing with. And this Elam people, it is prophesied that they will go all over the world. This has not really happened yet. There was an attempt to do that in the past history, but it has not happened yet. The goat coming from the west in Daniel 8:5, Gracia, you can find out that those are the descendants from Japhet, the other son of Noah. And Japhet, Java, Europe, those names stand for the same area. And today, those are the nations from the west, and mainly the European people are the ones who have spread out, for example, in the Americas and Australia. So basically, you will have the goat, which represent the descendant from Japhet or Java. The little horn, or the pagan Roman Empire, and the papal Rome, or the Holy Roman Empire, is spoken of in Daniel 8:9-14. Today, just like in the past, the Holy Roman Empire is represented by Germany and France. They are wanting to bring together now the Catholics, the Protestants, the Orthodox, to form the Holy Roman Empire number 4, and we can see that unfolding even in 2017 in this fall. You will see the celebration of, which is incredible, the Reformation will be celebrated having at the head the Roman Catholic Church. If we recall history, the Reformation was produced because of a separation from the Roman Catholic Church. So surely there must be someone who has something under his sleeve, because for the Roman Catholic Church now to want to celebrate the Reformation, it's a call to ecumenism, to bring together the stray people that went away from the mother church, mainly the Roman Catholic Church. And this is happening very quickly. Another very important detail I want you to notice is the ram and the goat are clean animal, contrary to the 4 beasts of Daniel 7, where the judgment is announced. But in Daniel 8, the Day of Atonement is to be taking place, the 2300 days. So therefore, the ram and the goat, not meaning that the countries representing the ram and the goat are the clean one, but it's simply a detail having to do with the Day of Atonement. They're the exact animal that were used during the Day of Atonement, which takes place in the most holy place to this day since 1844, with the investigative judgment of the dead, which started in 1844, and soon to change for the judgment of the living, with the sign in the United States with the national Sunday law followed with the universal Sunday law. This will be the test for the living at the time of the end. This is actually requiring a lot of attention. I want you to look at the page, and I want you to observe and look in particular to the word as I proceed in reading from the 8th Testimony to the Church, page 314, 315, which was written in 1904, which seems like a long time ago, doesn't it? The particular reading that I will read to you in a minute has to do with two poles of truth. So some might be simply saying that it does not have any value for us today, which is fine. But those of you who understand the two poles of truth, which is the way the Bible is written, you will be able to detect the physical and the spiritual, the concrete and the abstract, which always happens together. And what's so particular about this reading, it is titled, "A Storm is Coming, Relentless in Its Fury." I didn't make it up. That's the title of that particular reading. And I find it mighty interesting if you look at the pictures while I'm reading this and try to connect together, if you know the chronology of those two wars, Desert Storm and the War on Terror. To give you a clue, this particular reading was in 1904, and 10 years later, in 1914, the First World War was declared. Let me read the text now. "A storm is coming, relentless in its fury. Are we prepared to meet it? We need not say the perils of the last days are soon to come upon us. Already they have come. We need now the sword of the Lord to cut to the very soul and marrow of fleshly lust, appetites, and passions. We have no time to lose. We know not how soon our probation may close. Eternity stretches before us. The curtain is about to be lifted. Christ is soon to come. The angels of God are seeking to attract us from ourselves and from earthly things. Let them not labor in vain." When Jesus rises up in the most holy place, lays off his mediatorial robes, and clothes himself with the garments of vengeance, the mandate will go forth. "He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. He that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me, to give every man according as his work shall be." Christ in Matthew 24:6-8 give us this particular warning, "And you shall hear of wars and rumor of wars. See that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in divers places. All these are the beginning of sorrows." Let's go back to Desert Storm. Desert Storm occurred in 1991 after Iraq had attacked Kuwait. The West got involved, and they came in Kuwait as well to fight against Iraq. It was called actually Desert Storm. 10 years later, the War on Terror took place after the two towers in New York were literally disintegrated. And you have basically a 10 years period from 1991 to 2001. Is it a coincidence that the spirit of prophecy talks about the storm coming in 1904, and 10 years later, the First World War ever occurred? And in 1991, this was called Desert Storm, and 10 years later, we have the War on Terror, which we are living to this day with this kind of a mentality, and some people have even called it World War III. Is that a coincidence? I'll let you think about it.